Edible America, the voice of the farm-to-table movement. In Nebraska. Tonight on Edible America, Raise the Roots.
Chase the window, I wish I was back in more woods again, where the trees touch the heavens, and that river took me in. Take me home, on that country road, where I can play. My back porch in town. So take me home, on that country road, where I can play, where nobody goes, and lay me down, honey, in a cottonwood grove, where I can sleep, where nobody knows.
And just knowing that we have the power to change it. We don't have to have these people in charge. We've got beautiful people like Anna that are running for state legislator. Make sure that you go out, you vote, and you're voting for these amazing progressive people that have our communities in mind, and they have our best interests, and not perhaps just a money or a business. It's our lives. We can command some power. So this is a William Elliott tune. It's called Old Devils.
Edible America.
Hi, I'm Ayana Boykins. I am the Community Development Manager at No More Empty Pots, where we bring people together around food. So we help to improve self-sufficiency in groups and individuals, as well as promote regional food security, and then also economic resiliency within communities, urban and rural. So a lot of the things that we do, once again, develop around food, and so we have several community gardens within Omaha, the Omaha community. We also have a coffee shop that's located at 1502 South 10th Street, No More Empty Cups. We also have a community-supported agriculture program, our community market basket program. So instead of paying the full price for the community market basket, they actually only have to pay in $10 as opposed to the $20. So the growing season is usually between to 15 weeks. So they would be investing into locally grown, organically grown food for a small price per week, which really helps to create healthy lifestyles within families.
Hi, my name is Graham Christensen, and I've recently just started a business in order to help try to build the community at the grassroots level. This could be anything from developing solar panels on a residence or a farm, or even at the community scale. It can also entail help assisting in developing backyard gardens and finding markets for these folks that have those interests to be able to sell them into. My main goal here is to try to find all the little wins we can and help all the normal people just like you and me have a little bit more opportunity and better access, which overall I think means a better lifestyle. And of course we know that when we get some of these victories at the most local levels, sometimes there's not much we can do way up at the federal government, but we know every time we can take a win here, we'll take it and improve our community that surrounds us immediately.
Do we want to, are we going to do the questions right now? Do we want to do this? Sure. How about actually, I want to give it up for our special panelists tonight. We've got Dave Domer and Anna Wishart.
So my name's Anna Wishart, and I've worked 6 years at the state legislature. And for the past 3 years, I've worked for Senator Rick Kalowski from the Millard area. Yeah, he's a great guy. And the senator and we sat down 2 years ago talking about the work that we wanted to do to support local food in the state, and talking about how we wanted to bring democracy back to our food system and really relocalize our food system where the local communities have a decision in what is being farmed and the humane treatment of the animals and livestock. And what we found out is that Nebraska, we have a lot of space to work in terms of supporting local food. And the state legislature can play a huge role in this. So one of the first issues that we decided to tackle, I think a lot of you probably know Jeremiah Pickard, I would assume so. He came and worked with us, and John Hansen here with the Nebraska Farmers Union. And they came and worked with us to introduce a piece of legislation called cottage food legislation. And the cottage food industry is, if you don't know about it, it's where it's kind of a homegrown industry where a person can bake and make food in their personal kitchen, and then they can sell it directly to consumers or at farmers markets or to restaurants and to retail industry. And most of you probably know cottage food, either you work in it now or you know it from going to the farmers market. So several years ago, Nebraska passed legislation that allows people to bake in their personal kitchens, not having to make the investment in a commercial kitchen, but they can bake in their personal kitchens goods, non-hazardous foods, so baked goods, jams, jellies, herbs. There's a whole list of non-hazardous foods. So they can make those and sell them at farmers markets. Well, what we were looking to do with our legislation is to expand that so that people can sell directly to consumers, and also so that they could sell to grocery stores and to other retailers like restaurants and coffee shops, etc. And so we introduced that legislation last session, and it went to the Agriculture Committee. And it's definitely a learning curve. Some of the regulations that we have in place in this state, while they were good intentioned, like some of the food safety regulations or zoning regulations that we have in this state, while they're good intentioned, they also have unintended consequences. And so with food safety regulations, people are required to invest in a commercial kitchen to be able to sell any food directly to consumers or to restaurants or to grocery stores. And so we were pretty heavily opposed by the grocery industry who supports those food safety regulations. So the bill right now sits in committee, and it wasn't killed. The Agriculture Committee is thinking about it, but we really need your help. And if you know, I'm sure you guys have a great network of people who will reach out to the senators who are on the Agriculture Committee and tell them your personal stories about why it would be important. And I'll give you one personal story that we heard in a public hearing, and then I'll stop. But a woman from Pilger, she came and testified at the hearing. And as you know, they have suffered tremendously from the devastation from the tornadoes. And their town has decided not to reopen their grocery store. So she has been baking and growing vegetables and baking goods and making jams that a lot of people in the community come in and eat. And she wanted to start to sell that. But she can't afford to invest $30,000 in a commercial kitchen. And so this legislation would have allowed her to do that. So it's those kind of stories. And when you look at states around us, because we're being left behind, that are starting to pass cottage food legislation, like California, the first year that they passed it, they started 2,000 new businesses where people were starting to make and sell food out of their homes. So it's a really important piece of legislation, and it's one step towards us starting to push towards a state that supports local food.
Thank you so much, Anna. Do you have anything to add to that, Dave? No, you're perfect. I was like, I can get Dave to talk about the pipeline all day. But actually, my first question for you, Dave, is going to be about LB 175, the Community Gardens Bill. How do you find that would affect our community, Omaha, and Nebraska as a whole?
I'm going to defer to Anna on that. We just talked about it a little bit ago. You go ahead.
Awesome.
So with LB 175, and actually originally Senator Burke Carr was going to be here, and he was the introducer of that bill. So, you know, if you have more detailed questions, I would definitely recommend reaching out to his office. But he introduced a bill that allows for seed banks and seed sharing, and then also, I think it starts a community gardens council. And that bill did pass in the legislature, which was one step forward for urban agriculture. And so that's something we can celebrate this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna.
That it would abandon those condemnation proceedings and dismiss those 80 cases it filed in county courts from the South Dakota border to the Kansas border. Now, when it did that, it announced that it would make a filing with the Nebraska Public Service Commission, and it encouraged the press to think that that ended everything that would occur in court. But in fact, what happened is that 3 days before TransCanada filed its first condemnation case, Nebraska landowners sued TransCanada in Holt County at O'Neill and in York County. And we did that so we would have a case on file before the condemnation cases that we knew were coming were filed. And so we could amend that previous filing when their condemnations occurred, so that all of the landowners they condemned who wanted to oppose them in district court could join that case. Now, we're the plaintiff. There are two ways our case can be dismissed. We can give up, but TransCanada can't, or the court can throw us out. So on October 19, TransCanada has filed a motion in district court, which the judge will take up, which we object to. We're asking the court to finish the lawsuit, declare a statute, LB 1161, passed by the Nebraska legislature in 2012, unconstitutional, eliminate the possibility that a Nebraska governor can toss a political favor to a common carrier, and thereby thwart one of the two ways that a company like TransCanada can get permission to take land from Nebraskans. I could say, to end the answer to this question, watch for developments on October 19. I have a high degree of confidence that the court will keep the case, will decide the case, and that the statute will be declared unconstitutional. But there's more to it than that. Here's the first part. Nebraska has an obscure little statute that says that if any attempt at condemnation is actually filed in county court by any condemning authority, including the state, the State Department of Roads, a county, a school district, a natural resources district, or even a foreign pipeline company that thinks it's too big for our law, if they start the case and dismiss it before the land is taken, they can't go back to court for that land for 2 years. Now, TransCanada appears to have learned that when a Lincoln newspaper journalist called them and told them about it. So they responded by saying, well, we're really not abandoning our cases, we'll refile them later. That is exactly what the statute is designed to prevent. That's also why the Department of Roads goes through 4 or 5 layers of certainty about minute differences in legal descriptions to be sure they don't make a mistake and stop construction of an interstate highway over a mistaken legal description. So that 2-year statute applies to TransCanada, and we've now, Nebraskans have taken care of condemnation proceedings in the pipeline for 2 years from now. In addition to that, Nebraska has another obscure statute that says that the Public Service Commission cannot approve a route for a crude oil pipeline company that the governor has already approved. In our lawsuit in district court to be heard on October 19, the landowners asked the court to declare Governor Heinemann's approval of TransCanada's route across Nebraska invalid. If TransCanada wins that case, the governor will have approved the route. The Public Service Commission cannot act on their recently filed application. So TransCanada is now in a position so that the only way they can proceed before the PSC is if Nebraska's landowners beat them in district court and declare Heinemann's action void. Now here's what I hope. If the Kansas City Royals can manage to beat the Houston Astros yet today and they're behind and tomorrow, I hope those TransCanada people are managing whoever they play in the American League Championship Series. I can't even imagine a more poorly managed set of legal decisions than TransCanada has made consistently since 2011. The landowners have been courageous. Their lawyers have been walking around with horseshoes in our pockets looking smart. TransCanada has just done an unbelievably foolish job, and we're all thankful for that.
And this bill lost right at the end of session by 1 vote, and it was Senator Kulowski's decision not to vote in favor of this bill. So it will be back next year, and we will need all of you to reach out to your senators and tell them why this is a terrible idea. And now Dave will tell you why it's a terrible idea.
So let's assume for a minute, how many of you now sell an ag product of some kind, any kind? Okay. So let's assume for a minute that you could not sell your product to whoever your current customer is, whether that's somebody who buys from you at wholesale or at retail. You can't sell to them. Instead, what you have to do is enter into a contract with one of the nation's large corporations, a multinational corporation, in order to grow your current product for that company. Assume that is what was required, okay? This law will put in place, if passed, the economic power structure that will make precisely that happen to people who contract with great big multinational corporations to feed their hogs or to feed their cattle. Instead of operating in a free market, they will take whatever the consolidated industry will pay them for the serf's labor, no return on capital. What you hear about as return on capital for their buildings is an utterly false promise. If you doubt that's true, spend 10 minutes on the internet studying the chicken industry and you'll be persuaded. This bill is absolute, out-and-out robbery committed against every Nebraska producer who is not currently a captive of a large corporation with a 50 or 60 or 70 or 80,000 head cattle feed yard or a whole bunch of hogs. It is the most utterly nonsensical thing that I think I've heard of anyone producing that would affect the livelihoods of Nebraska, introducing the livelihood of Nebraskans in my now extended life. The reason this has political verve is because by and large people, including state senators, do not think. Opportunity creates wealth. The ability to make decisions creates wealth. The more opportunities you have, the more decisions you have to make, the more chances you have to be right, and the more chances you have to make up for a mistake in the past. This will take it down to one contract for an extended 2-3 year period of time, and you expect to cover your mortgage on your 10, 20, or 30-year financed building with that 2 or 3 year contract. You are a cooked goose in those economics.
Now, I've heard that some of the packing companies are actually foreign-owned, and I don't want to impugn anyone's ancestry or where anything comes from, but I am concerned about the idea of exporting capital to foreign countries.
Well, how many of you know the acronym JBS? JBS is the large, John Hanson does. JBS is the largest protein company in the world. It's the largest beef packer in the United States and the world, and it is now the largest owner of cattle on feed in the United States. And it's been in the United States doing business fewer than 10 years. It's owned by people from Brazil. Chinese interests now own the largest number of sows in the United States. They slaughter the most hogs in the United States, and they are vertically integrated, so they feed their own pigs until they're fat and kill them in their facilities. The American farmer is out of the hog business. The cash market for hogs, you want to take a bid and sell to the bidder, is less than 2% of the entire trade of fed hogs in the United States. Fed cattle, about 5%. You want to talk about somebody who is a free market person? You need to be talking to a Democrat. And you probably need to be thinking about Bernie Sanders.
I agree. Anna, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
So a lot of you know that Dave ran for office last year, and give him a round of applause for putting himself out there. And now I'm currently running for office. I'm running for the Nebraska legislature. And I know a lot of people here, you vote with your wallets in terms of deciding to support businesses that support the community, but I really hope that you'll consider also the power of the ballot, and that you'll also consider volunteering on campaigns, because I can't tell you how important it is for us to get people elected who are truly going to represent the people of Nebraska. And Dave, I didn't get to tell you this before, but I've almost knocked the entire district so far, thousands and thousands of doors. And I knocked so many doors. He would have won in my district. And I knocked so many doors of people who supported him. And I talked to people about Dave. So I hope you'll do it again.
Well, you know, I'm old and not going to do it again, but I will say this about Nebraska and campaigning. I handed out, or Ken did for me, a little sheet that I put together, which is really just a collection of websites about the issues you're interested in. And I'm a firm believer that under-read are the resources of the United Nations. The United Nations has a fabulous website with all kinds of resources. Look at it and you'll see that there are all kinds of places in the world that are working on your agricultural interests that are out ahead of us. You know the USDA website has a ton of stuff on it. So then I became interested in the states. And what does Nebraska have that deals with urban agriculture? And the answer is I couldn't find anything on the subject on the internet except a subset of a USDA website that mentioned Nebraska in distant passing. So there's work to be done. There is an audience to support you. You know, Nebraska's 93 counties, each county has a 1% now. And the other 99% are afraid of what's going to happen to them. And they are thrilled at the idea of seeing young people raising anything that you can eat for sale. You have an audience that will support you.
He's trying to tell me, he's like, I can't express enough how much John Hanson has done for the Nebraska Farmers Union. And without all of the longest running president, lobbyist, everything that you do, everything he does, Nebraska would not be the same when it comes to the coalitions between the humane societies and the cooperatives and education, everything that the Farmers Union is doing. Thank you so much, John, for being here, and all of... But everything you do, thank you so much for all the energy and time. I wish Matt could be here and do such a more beautiful justice to all the time and energy you've put into this. But we are here not because we are lawbreakers. We are here in our efforts to become lawmakers, and we fight for what is right, or shall I say what's left? 'Cause we are left standing in the ashes of all the suffragettes, and we won't go quietly, oh, we won't go silently. It's my body, it's my voice, it's my goddamn choice. You can't take that from me.
Edible America, the voice of the farm-to-table movement.
Many bodies, one. Many bodies, one mind. Many bodies, many bodies, many bodies, one.
Raise the roots. Edible America, the voice of the farm-to-table movement. In Nebraska, Edible America.